Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a comparison between the Isamaya Industrial palette and the Isamaya Wild Star palette. So I already have a first impression of this up and two videos reviewing these. So like a 30+ minute video, very detailed reviewing both of these, but I wanted to compare them because they are very different color stories and very different formulas. So I wanted to do a short video kind of showing you side by side how they differ and if there is any similarities. So that way, if you were thinking about picking up one of these and you were torn because they're both about $100, you could have a better informed decision. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Colin. I am a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a soft spot for indie makeup and colorful makeup. And I have new content every week, so I'd love to have you subscribe. Like I said in the intro, I do have a full, very detailed and thorough review for both of these up on my channel. I have two videos with the Wild Star palette and one with the Industrial, I believe, just because I did get this late. I got this when it was on sale sometime in, I think, early October, and then I got this technically before it came out. So this is still available. This is the Industrial palette. It retails for $115, and it is her first big collection with the Industrial collection. And then this is the Wild Star palette. I have the whole collection. I did buy this. I did bought both of these myself. This is currently available for pre-order. I think it's $105 and it is supposed to ship around Christmas. The estimated shipping time is December 22nd through January 23rd. If you buy this, you'll get it shipped right away. And their shipping was very fast when I bought. This I was able to get early because they did a 3-day pop-up in Los Angeles, and I was just there, but I couldn't go back down, but I have a lot of friends there. So one of them lives right by one of the pop-ups, so they went and got this for me, and I am very, very thankful for that. So I was able to film some content and get some stuff out there to help people if they were thinking about buying this. So today, I hope this won't be a long video. I don't think it will be. The last two were very detailed and very long, so I will link them in the description box and up in the cards. Today, I just wanted to talk about the similarities and differences in the formulas in these, in case you were, and they're very different color stories and themes. But if you liked both and you were like, I don't want to spend $200, which one should I buy? This way you can kind of have that, or if you already have the Industrial and you were intrigued by Wild Star, you could see how they compare. And as far as my makeup today, I will have it all in the description box like normal. I'm actually wearing one of the newer Anastasia palettes, the ABH Rose Metals. And I am wearing one of the Haus Labs Lick Lacquers. This is the shade CPS Shine. I was finally able to grab this. And then my base is pretty much my standard everyday base. I have the Auric Glow Lust all over, and then a little bit of concealer where I needed it. I did mix like a drop of the Haus Labs foundation into the Glow Lust, but it was a very minimal amount just because that has a tint, but a very, very minimal tint. So I kind of made my own skin tint by doing that. So this is the Industrial palette. I'm sure you've seen this before. It was kind of viral because of how interesting the packaging is and it being a new brand and all of that. I've had this for a couple months now. Adore this palette. This is amazing. I love this. And then this is the new palette. Very different themes, very different packaging. They're both plastic, not metal, even though they could be metal. This one especially looks like metal. This one is a little lighter than this. This has a little more heft, but they both feel really nice in the hand. And that's something I really like about this brand is how wildly different these collections have been so far. I feel like the brand is going to be doing that a lot, and I really appreciate those wide swings. So even if you don't like a collection, you might like the next one just because they're going to be doing all of these capsule collections. So this is the Industrial palette. I love this. It's very green and grungy. Some people don't like this because, one, they don't like greens, or I know some people didn't like this because it's a very sheer formula for the most part. It is a lot of different formulas. So this is 14 shades, and I think it's like 10 or 11 different formulas. So there's a couple that are the same formula, but overall, almost every shade is a different formula in here and a different finish. A lot of them are a semi-sheer to sheer kind of buildable thing. It's very much meant to, it feels very painterly, and they layer upon each other really nicely. So this is the Wildstar palette, and it is 12 shades, and it has her first mattes as a brand, which I was very intrigued by. And you can see it's a wildly different color stories. This is very grungy, very deep, and this has neutral brown mattes and pink and gold as the overall vibe of the color story. There are a couple shades that are a similar formula in both, but for the most part, they're pretty different. So this has two of these putty shadows, which I really, really love. This is a black, like a matte black, and this is a blue, like a black with blue sparkle. And if you build it up, you really do see the blue, at least on my skin tone. But blue tends to really pop because I'm olive and green. I wanted to compare like some of the more similar shades, like the sheer shades or like this bronze. I wanted to compare them side by side so you can kind of see that. I'm gonna take off my watch and do a bunch of swatches mostly, and kind of talk through my thoughts as I swatch. So one of my favorite shades in the industrial palette is this one. It's the shade Cuprum. And it is a really pretty one and done kind of shade. You can blend out the edges, so you can use it as a matte since this doesn't have any mattes in it. And it's this really pretty brown bronze. And I did want to make sure I compared it to this one here. This is the shade Chaser, or Chaps. It's kind of hard to read because they're all in a circle on the back. And I wanted to show you side by side. So they are very similar, but not identical, which I am happy about. So this is the one from Industrial, and this is the one from, so I'd say the one from Wildstar is thicker and creamier and definitely has more gold. They're both reflecting kind of gold. This is reflecting a little more bronze to me, and this is reflecting more like gold. And then in person, I definitely see that. This looks more like just a standard bronze from like Pat McGrath, and this I can see that gold sparkle running through it. So there is the Industrial shade. And there is the one from Wildstar. So you can see they are a little bit different, but they are pretty similar. The shade has a little bit more pink to it. The Industrial one is like, there's like a, not pink, like a terracotta undertone to it. And this is more just chocolate brown and has a lot more sparkle, it's a little thicker, creamier, but they are both a similar brown with bronzy gold to them. So I did want to make sure I showed those side by side. After swatching, this one is just a little more sparkly and a little bit different. This sparkle has a little bit more green to the gold, a little more bronzy. This one is just like true gold. They are pretty similar, especially in two $100 palettes, although I don't think the brand thinks everybody is going to buy all of them. But, you know, Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona do that a lot too, and they have some pretty expensive palettes, so I'm not surprised. How many yellow golds do we have from Pat McGrath? The Industrial palette does have those putty shades, which I will swatch, which we don't have. So this is the Putty Matte Black, and I'll swatch it next to the Matte Black from Wildstar so you can kind of see. These are so silky, but you can see immediately the difference there in kind of texture and tone. This comes off a little bit more dark gray. So there's the Putty, and there's the Matte Black. But they're very different formulas. I really love this Putty. It works really well. You can layer it on top of shimmers. You can put it as the base. It acts as a nice, because it's that putty texture, before it dries down, it acts as a nice base for shimmers. So I think it's a really interesting, useful shade. But those are the only like ones that feel really similar in the palette, so I wanted to make sure I swatched them side by side. So Industrial has a few of these toppers. So here, here, and here, they are sheer, like no base topper shades. We don't have any of that in Wildstar, but we do have an iridescent shade, an iridescent like multi-chrome, duochrome shade. So I'll swatch this one right here and this one right here so you can kind of see. These are very sheer topper, kind of like give you that wet effect sparkle. I love these. This is the shade Sweat. I really love this. It looks like you're like glowing. And you can see just sheer topper. This one doesn't even swatch very well. There's a green sparkle there. In person I can see it, and if you layer it up, you can definitely see it. There's been days where I put that all over my brow bone. You can definitely see it. It just doesn't swatch very well. And then here is the iridescent shade from the new palette. You can see much more texture. There's much more texture and base to this. It's a clear base versus having no base and just sparkle. So you can see it's more like a Terra Moon's iridescent multi-chrome. So you can see, you can't even see this one, but it's just a lot more sparkly and a lot more reflective because it has a clear base versus like no base. These are literally just sparkle, but they are really great for that wet effect. You're not gonna get a wet effect from this. This is gonna look like sparkle, especially if you use a tacky base. It's gonna be really shiny. So this palette has a few like semi-sheer shades, like this one right here. You can see there's a bit of a base there, but not a lot. I mean, they swatch horribly. These are not palettes for swatching. This is definitely for using on the eyes. And then it has kind of more of a standard feeling metallic and then more of a textured one that's smoothed out. So this one here, really beautiful kind of gold, antique gold. And then you've got this like really textured black sparkly shade. This one feels a little dry. This feels creamy. This feels kind of like the shimmers in the new palette. I would say they're kind of a combination of these. It's like the texture of this without the dryness, but the creaminess of this. So here's that antique gold. And here is that sparkly shade. See, super intense sparkle. And it does feel a little bit more like a Pat McGrath Bake shade. It's got that little texture, but it smooths out as you put it on the eye. My hands are covered in sparkle now. And then the majority of these shimmers, so the blue one, this bronze pink, you can see that shift of bronze pink. This is like a coral pink gold. This is a green gold here. Those are all more like these kind of shimmers. This purple here is a little bit more like the semi-sheer one here. So that is the only one. So if you didn't like these shades in the first palette, this purple is the only one that's like that. So you can see it's got that really pretty color to it, but it's more of a wash of wet purple sparkle. It's much more like this shade here from the first palette. So if you don't like those kind of shades, it's the only one in there. And I like it, but just wanted to give you that heads up. And then if you touch these ones, they're all basically a duochrome, which I appreciate. But you can see they're a little more textured, really sparkly, and they're much more like these two put together. See how it's like the sparkly texture from this one, but the creaminess of this one? They're special. I have a whole video talking about what they compare to and comparing them to Kaleidos, Pat McGrath, a bunch of other brands. So I will have that linked, but comparing side by side the two palettes, I wanted to show that off. So if you really like grungy shades, if you like more of those iridescent topper, like sheer topper wet effect shades and more like buildable layerable shadows, this one is the one I would recommend. I really love this palette a lot. This palette has stolen my heart. But if this is too grungy and too murky for you, which is, you know, its whole vibe, this one is really beautiful, and I think this one would work better, especially if you don't like the sheer shades here, or you're someone that deals with a lot of hard pan, because I do know some people had hard pan on a lot of the more sheer shades. I haven't had a problem in the months that I've had it. This, you're not gonna get that. These are a very different texture. You're also getting all kind of sparkly, shifty shades, which I really like. It's kind of like having indie singles in a palette with really nice mattes. Also, if you're someone that has to have mattes, this is the one that has mattes in it, and they are wonderful. This one has the putty shades, which are a matte and dry down, and it has this that you can blend out like a matte, but it doesn't have any true mattes. So I hope this was helpful, seeing like these side by side and seeing the different formulas side by side. I know these are the kind of videos that I appreciate, which is why I'm making them, because I don't see them very often. But I hope that is helpful, especially if you were torn between the two. Like if you liked them both, I'm hoping that that is helpful. I do think they both layer really nicely. So a lot of loud trucks and stuff today. They both layer really nicely. I feel the industrial palette is a little more painterly. They're a little sheer. You can use like 5 shades and they'll all just melt together, and it doesn't feel heavy, and they just look really interesting, and they just kind of morph into a new shade as you blend them. My best friend finally tried it the other day for Thanksgiving, actually, and when she came back upstairs, because she lives downstairs, she was just like, is it possible to be sexually attracted to a palette? Because this is amazing. I am obsessed. And she really wants to try this. She loves this pink, but I've just been reviewing it, so she hasn't borrowed it. These also really layer nicely because they're creamy, but like not overly creamy. They're not heavy, and I have layered, you know, this shade and this shade and this shade, or this shade and this shade, or I've layered multiple together, and they just melt into each other. They layer really beautifully. So that ability to like painterly use them, even despite the different formulas, is something I really appreciate from the brand so far. Okay, so if you want more thoughts and like detailed looks and detailed thoughts comparing them to other formulas, I'll have my other videos linked. I just wanted to do a quick side-by-side for y'all. So if you want any more comparisons or anything else, let me know in the comments below. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.